In Geometry Essentials 7, we created these hard surface circular indentations using interactive selection and direct modelling techniques. Over the next few lessons, we're going to make the same thing procedurally. In fact, I'd suggest that before watching this lesson, you go back to the corresponding lesson in Geometry Essentials 7 and watch that video again, and I've included the link to that lesson in the notes below this video. So, starting with this grid, we need to first select the location points for the centre of each indentation. So to do that, I'll drop down a group create node after the grid. And I'll change the group type to points and enter the interactive selection mode. And now I'll just manually select the points that I want to be the center positions for each indentation. And I'll hit enter. I'll call the group location. And now if I bring up the node info in this group node, we see that we've got a point group called location, and it contains 6 points. Now, you might be thinking, hang on a minute, you said we were going to be making all our selections procedurally, but you've just selected these points interactively. And yes, that's true, but if you think of this tool as being something which we're going to package up as an HDA, so that we can reuse it whenever we need to create circular indentations in a piece of geometry, then it would be natural to ask the user to specify where exactly they want these indentations. In fact, there are a number of different SOPs which are shipped with Houdini, which don't perform any operation until we give it a component selection. For example, the edge divide and the edge collapse SOPs behave like this. These are both operators which are used in both interactive and procedural poly modeling workflows, and when we wire in some input geometry, we see that by default they don't perform any operation. We need to first provide an edge selection for the node to operate on. So for example, for this edge collapse SOP, I'll select an edge and hit enter. And now we see that that specified edge is being collapsed to a single point. The edge collapse and the edge divide SOPs are still procedural nodes, but they require an edge selection in the group parameter to perform their operation. This group parameter for the initial component selection is what we're essentially providing with this first group create node. So now we have the location point selected, we need to convert the point selection to a primitive selection, and we do that using a group promote SOP. I'll just delete these 2 nodes which we don't need. And after this group create SOP, I'll drop down a group promote node. In the group name parameter, I'll select the group that we want to convert, which in this case is the location group. And in the convert to dropdown, I'll select primitives. Now we can see from the cuck selection being output by this node that each of the primitives attached to a location point are now selected. From here, we want to inset each of these polygon selections, and we do that with the poly extrude node. In the group parameter, I'll select the location group, which of course is now a primitive group rather than a point group, and I'll increase the inset distance to inset these polygons from the selection border. Now to reshape this inset square into a circle, I'll add a circle from edges SOP, and for the group to operate on, I'll select the location primitives. And now we see those inset faces are formed into circles. Now instead of using the original location group, I could have come back to the poly extrude node and output the front group and used that. In the groups and attributes list, we can see that the location group and the front extrude group both contain the same primitive selection. When the original location primitives get inset by the poly extrude node, they get scaled inwards, and new polygons are created to bridge the gap. If I just disable the output of the side polygons for a moment, we can see this more clearly. So this is why the location primitive group gives us the primitive selection for the faces on the inside of the inset. They've just been scaled towards a center point. I'll enable the output of the side primitives again. And the other group that I could have output from the poly extrude node and used as the selection for the circle from edges operation is the front boundary edge group. If I just change my groups and attributes list to display edge groups, then now we can see the edge selection, which by default is called extrude front seam. Now in the circle from edges SOP, I'll remove the location group, and instead I'll select the extrude front seam group. And we see that the edge selection gets shaped into a circle, giving us the same overall result. I'm just going to remove this group and use the location group again. And I'll come back to the poly extrude node and disable the output of the front edge group, because it's always good practice to keep things as simple as possible. There's no need to generate additional groups if we don't need to. In the next lesson, we'll continue this exercise and finish building this procedural network.